Hello, this is Dr. Fred Garcia, founder and president of Quantum Medical Associates, and this is another episode of the ongoing series of videos that I'm presenting to the world. It's knowledge-based, it works, it comes from all the medical traditions, and it's science and fact-based, and it's basically knowledge on how to cure yourself. And other videos describe in detail the physical, the emotional. Today we're going to be talking about mental healing using quantum meditation and awareness. Okay, I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that our genetics and the evolutionary process was not to make us happy. Instead, evolution primary goal was survival. And because of that, it tends us into a state of unhappiness. But that's the bad news. The good news is through quantum mental healing, I have diagnosed the problem, and there is a way out of this prison of the head, is what I call it, prison of the head, where the head is tormenting you all the time. And now the evidence is replete in the medical literature that over 75% to 98% of all disease is caused by mental stress. And so if we could eliminate stress, we'd be well on our way toward eliminating disease. The other leg of the bipod, two-legged stool, is good food. 80% of all disease is caused by lifestyle abnormalities. And number one is eating good food. And if you've seen my other videos, the bottom line is no breakfast, no sugar, no bread, no dairy, no thinking, exercise, and now you do that, that's gonna get your physical body healthy. And now the next step is to use the mind to also improve the health, as well as bring you to a state that I call qualia. Qualia is a state of health, peace, and joy, interrupted only by moments of ecstasy. This is what I have accomplished for myself through many, many years of study. But I want to, through the wonderful media of the internet, give this information, which is basically knowledge on how to heal yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. Today we're talking about mental healing. First of all, let's talk about the evolution of the brain. First of all, we were fishes in the ocean, then we came on land as amphibians, half became reptiles, and they have their young by laying eggs. The other half went to aves, or birds, and they also lay eggs. But it's from the birds that we evolved primates. And we were furry little creatures in the trees for a long time. And because of that, we were always in fear of being eaten. Survival was our major modus operandi. So that's why, because of that, we are in a state of hypervigilance. Despite the fact that we're not furry little animals anymore, that we live in the United States, most powerful army in the history of the world, we have plenty of food, but we still have this fear. And so the primal brain, it's very, very simple. You have fear. You have desire, which is the desire to be absent of fear. You have pain and pleasure. You want to eliminate pain and maximize pleasure. These are in the reptilian primal brain. Now, also good is we have an autonomic nervous system which runs the body. And also, in my exploration of the workings of the brain and the mind, we have a right brain, our subconscious, that really runs the show. We don't have to be thinking all the time. That's man's big mistake. He thinks he has to think his way through life. And he's always figuring out problems. But what he doesn't understand is the problems that the head figures out are problems that it caused, and it's always one problem behind. Okay, so we talked about the primal brain, and then the next step of evolution was the midbrain, which is the amygdala, which is emotional control, and the hippocampus, which is memory and also has some emotional components too. Long-term and short-term memory. And also, so you have, that's the midbrain, and that's called the limbic system. Then, when we became mammals, when we started having babies alive, we started developing a neocortex, which is the outer covering of our brain, and it's what gives us intelligence, our reasoning power, which really separated us from the animals. But also, it evolved because we started living in groups of people, and so we had to get along. We couldn't give in to our animal instincts. If somebody yelled at us, our primal instincts would be to kill them. And so our neocortex, we're mammals, we're having live babies. We want to have control. So it's our control center. It's called the neocortex, or the left prefrontal brain. It's all exquisitely mapped out. So the cortex, neocortex, it maintains equilibrium between the emotional aspects of our brain, and also the primal tendencies. So that's how the brain evolved. The problem is that because of our desire not to feel pain, we don't want to feel pain at all. So anything that has semblance of pain, we want to keep it out by creating a narrative that it's not going to happen, or whatever the narrative may be. But here is the problem, is because we're always thinking, and it's generally we're talking to ourselves about ourselves, things concerning ourselves. What we have found, that this is, what I have found in my research, is this is constantly increasing the ego and the personality. Self, 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 self. And that makes us kind of like a bastion to be attacked by whatever. We have this whole idea of self. In reality, if you listen to you cannot find self. The Buddha says we're selfless. And so much of Buddhist practice is to realize that the self is part of a much larger being or existence or the universe. And when we do that, then incidents, insults, whatever, don't affect us so much. And so we're all, and the other big problem is that all our different responses are cross-wired. So we know that there are three basic motivations. Number one is survival. That's the fight or flight. We know that's because of the adrenaline, noradrenaline, collectively known as the catecholamines, and they stimulate the body's, you have increased blood sugar, increased strength, heart rate goes up. That's the fight or flight. And that produces anger and anxiety. And then the second motivational instinct is toward goal orientation, accomplishment. And we know that is dopamine. It works on the nucleus accumbens, which is our pleasure center. And it's the same area that cocaine, crack cocaine works on, as well as serotonin and dopamine. That dopamine is also a secretion of that is also caused by eating sugar. And also the serotonin, which also acts on the nucleus accumbens, the pleasure center. So the food we eat is actually addicting, as addicting or more addicting than cocaine, the sugar and the simple carbohydrates. And that's why we keep eating it. So that's the primary motivational center is survival, and that's the adrenaline, fight or flight. Secondarily is the accomplishment or the goal orientation. That's dopamine that works in the pleasure center, nucleus accumbens, and the result of that is a feeling of accomplishment. So that second part of motivational series is good. So first is fight or flight, survival. Second is accomplishment, and we know how it works, dopamine on the nucleus accumbens. And so we get now the third is, I call it tend and mend. That is getting along with other people. And that is oxytocin, is secreted by the pituitary gland. And the oxytocin has been called the love hormone. It's secreted when a mother has a baby, constricts the uterus, and also makes her immediately in love with her child. So much so that she would give her life for it a minute after birth. Anyway, so that's oxytocin. And that's the tend or mend part of our of the triumphant, of the motivational. First is survival, fight or flight. It's a goal, and from that you get a feeling of accomplishment. Fight or flight, it's anger, anxiety, and then tend or mend, when you're loving and you try to cooperate with other people, tend or mend, oxytocin secreted from the pituitary, and you fall in love, or it's a feeling of well-being. So that's where one of the places you want to be. Where I want to be is in the goal, accomplishment, and in the tend and mend. So we have to sublimate the fight or flight, and much of psychotherapy is trying to train people that they're faulty thinking. There is not a tiger behind the curtain, even though we're geared and we evolved to feel that way. And so we're always in a kind of an alert, stressful situation, and that can be seen in electrical activity in the right prefrontal cortex, whereas long-term meditators, Tibetan monks, they have more activity in the left prefrontal cortex. And also the thickness of the neocortex in the long-term meditators, and they live a life of quiescence, peace, and serenity. And they're not bothered by this constant fear, alertness. And you can see by the increase in thickness of the neocortex of the left prefrontal. This is all science, folks. Left prefrontal cortex. And we can see people, as we get older, our neocortex, our intelligence aspect of our brain, gets thinner and thinner. If we do quantum mindful meditation, then we can reverse that. Plus, we also increase the thickness of the nucleus accumbens and the hippocampus. Hippocampus is our memory, and Alzheimer's disease is almost epidemic in this country. It along with cancer and heart disease are totally preventable if you do the quantum healing techniques that I've talked about. Diet, of course. In fact, Alzheimer's, some doctors think it should be called type 3 diabetes. It's so intimately associated with sugar. Alzheimer and sugar, no. That's why on my program I say, no breakfast, no sugar, no bread, no dairy, no thinking. Okay, now we're going to get to the concept of no thinking. Okay, we do know, because of the ability to measure our mental output, mental output. See, the mind is a me computer. No, I'm sorry, wrong. The brain is a me computer. It runs the body. Brain is a me computer. It runs the body. The mind runs the brain. So now, the goal is to get the mind to run the brain properly. And I think I've made some real inroads in exactly that. And the consequence is having control of your emotions, having control of your mental state, and by doing so, you control your present and also your future. So you're creating your own reality. It's all done with the mind, not the brain. The brain runs the body. It evolved through evolution, and it tends to make us not happy. So you have to bring in the mind, which is a quantum computer, in order to help you to achieve what I call qualia, health, peace, and joy. So here's the process. First of all, we have the different levels of consciousness. The beta state is between 8 and 13 hertz. The alpha state is between 7 and, the beta state is 13 to 60 hertz. The alpha state is, where we want to be, is between 7 and 8 hertz. Between 7 and 8 hertz. That is the meditative state. And the research is replete with the benefits of body and mind and meditation. Meditation shows all sorts of changes, positive changes, in neurological structure and function. Mindful meditation or quantum healing meditation will change the structure of your brain as well as the function of it. So, what is quantum healing meditation? First of all, we know that the frequency is 7 to 8 hertz, which is the meditative state. What is meditation? And this is something most other doctors miss. Okay, and the meditative state is a state of non-thinking. It's called the alpha state of being. And then you have the zone, the athletes, they're also in the alpha state. No, Jesus said, you enter heaven as a child. Children under 3 years of age are in the alpha state. So alpha state is the preferred state of being. And I will teach you in subsequent lectures how to get into the alpha state. Thank you. Stay tuned.